It's so satisfying as a hobby board gamer, one who likes to collect games and play new games all the time, when you find a hidden gem, a game that you would never thought you would have liked in the first place. You would have passed it right by on the shelf, whether it's the name or the theme or the artwork or whatever, and you realized that this game is actually a really great game. And this happened with this game that I'm reviewing today. So let's get right down to business. Let's get on to my review of Meeple War. In Meeple War, the players take the roles of the leaders of the four kingdoms of Lilliput, sending their wooden constructs of war out to destroy stuff and to control the big wooden towers in the middle of the countryside. You score points by holding the towers, killing opponents' meeples, and by destroying opponents' buildings. Each player starts with their own little plot of land with their village square on it. Buildings have workers standing on the building action paths. You'll start by moving all of your workers one space down their paths. When a worker reaches a branch in the path, he can choose which way to go. When he finally reaches the end of the path, the building's action triggers. Your initial building, the village square, has three options: construct a new building, build a new Meeple War machine, or deploy meeples from your depot into the world. Each player has a stack of 9 additional buildings that they can construct. You choose which one you want and lay it face down on one of the 3 building spaces and place a worker on the construction path. Like the action path, the worker will now move down the path once per turn until the building is finished and flipped over. Now you have a new action path to send your worker down. These actions can include creating flying machines that transport your meeples about the board, blowing up opponents' buildings, burning armies, converting opponent meeples into your own, and so on. Once you have your Meeple War machines deployed onto the board, you can start rolling through the world and destroying stuff. Each turn, you can move each meeple one space. If you move into an empty space, you can explore by drawing a new tile from the stack and moving onto it. A bunch of these new tiles that you place can have cool stuff on them you can take advantage of. Like the caves, they let you pop up 2 spaces away like a snake in the grass. Or the mines that let you traverse all the way across the board in a single move. And there's the forge spaces that let your meeples get weapons or shields to help them in combat. Then also there's the ancient god altars. These force you to sacrifice one of your meeples to murder someone else's meeple a few tiles away. If you roll into a tile with opponents' meeples, you're gonna fight. Each one of your meeples kills one of their meeples and vice versa, and whoever has meeples standing at the end is the winner. And both sides are gonna score bravery points for killing each other. And lastly, you can attack another player's town. Moving a meeple into an opponent's building breaks one of their defenses. Once all of the defensive spaces have been filled, the building is destroyed and you score points equal to the number of defensive spaces it had. And once someone reaches 6 victory points during their turn, the game will end immediately, and the player with the most points will go down in legend as the greatest Meeple Lord of all Lilliput. Now, why do I say that this is a hidden gem, a game that I would have passed by normally? Well, first off, right off the bat, the title is awful. I look at the title of this game and I don't want to play it. It's like a meta type jokey thing now, where meeple, the word meeple, we use the word meeple as sort of a funny little term for the little wooden guys in our games. And I just, for some reason, myself don't like it when that word starts to creep into the theme of the game. Like they call them meeples. The game is called Meeples. I don't like that meta thing. Like, I don't know, like try to make a cool theme, not just try to make a clever joke out of it. It almost makes a joke out of a game. And I don't like that about this. The artwork itself is actually very good, but the cover of the box and the rule book have these big wooden goofball warrior things, and it just turns me off. It's not a cool theme when you look at that artwork. Now, the artwork on everything else is stunning and gorgeous, and I love it, but those things turned me away. And of course, the mechanics of the game are really a territory control game. Sort of, and I got plenty of those, so something's really got to be awesome to draw me in. And all of that stuff, somehow I saw past it into this game and tried it anyway. Opened the box, read the rules, and I was very excited after I got through these rules. Now, What do I like about it? Well, first off, there's so many games out there that have tried to emulate the real-time strategy genre from video games, RTS. And I have not personally found one that really feels like an RTS. It feels like a board game, and they're throwing in some RTS concepts, but it never feels that way until Meeple War. Meeple War is a real-time strategy game, and it succeeds on all counts. The first reason is the buildings, and this is my favorite aspect of this game. The buildings, you got 9 of them in your hand. You can play any of them that you want. And when you build them, you play them face down. You got to put that worker on there and he's building it. And it takes like 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 rounds for that building to then be built so that you can put a worker on them to actually make it work in 2 or 3 or 4 rounds. So cool, because this is a game of patience and foresight. Your strategy has to be 2 and 3 and 4 turns into the future. Like a real-time strategy game. I know I'm going to need this. It's building. And then when it's done, I can start using it. This is done in this game in the perfect way. It's so satisfying to think of a plan for the future and see it come to fruition like 10 minutes later or 15 minutes later when everything is up and working, when your engine is actually operational. And it's neat how you have to time everything too, because your buildings are all on these little progress bars of actions. They're working, the little workers moving along them. And you have to plan for an order, right? Because if you put them all down and they all take 3 turns, you're not doing anything until the 3 turns is up. You want to build them and then build the next one so that the actions happen as the rounds progress over and over between rounds, you know what I mean? Like in amongst the rounds, so that you have this constant flow of production and actions happening. So cool. The strategies there are very cool, and I love that part of it. So the buildings concept, great. And it's cool that your buildings can get destroyed and you can't build them anymore. Like if your catapult gets blown up, you can't build the catapult anymore. You have to build something different. So that's a pivot point in your strategy. You have to decide, okay, I can't use it anymore. They got rid of it because the catapult was really powerful and they wanted it gone. So now I got to try a different strategy with a different building, which within an hour's playtime or an hour and 15 minutes that this game takes, the fact that you can pivot 2 and 3 sometimes times throughout a game and feel like you saw your strategy come to fruition and had to pivot off of it to something else, that's a win. That's a win for a game like this. Let's talk about exploration, which really this game is a 4X game. I mean, it has just about all of them there. You're building things and then you're exploring, which I didn't think that this was going to have it until I read that in the rules, and I got very excited. I thought the board looked a little small. But as you explore, you find these new cool things. And they're not mind-blowing things that you find out there, but they're very useful to your strategies in the game, and actually can formulate strategies for you. You can get those the shields, and you can get the swords, and they let you defend and attack better against the other armies. And those things, whereas they aren't like crazy cool or anything, but they really lend to your strategies. You can develop strategies from them. And the other things, I mean, there's like one that lets you traverse through trees and no one else can do that. So you can then be the very mobile army. And people can take them away from you by taking those tiles, but they have to allocate resources to do it. And it's not hard to take them away from people, but it's also takes effort. So they have to decide, does their strategy allow for me to send a detachment of meeples over there to take that space away? Again, I'm going to go back to it. For a game that takes like an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, this is like a dense, full experience. It has all of this stuff in it. So neat. The war is not all that complex. I mean, it's 1-for-1 guys die and whoever has the majorities wins. That's why some of the tokens you find from exploring are so valuable, because it can really give you the edge in combat. I really like that. I think the warring being easy really is cool. And it really just rewards tactical movement and positioning of your armies to make sure that you get the upper hand against your enemies. Also, I enjoy that there are 3 ways to win the game, 3 ways to score points, really. And each one of them is so different that that you have to formulate strategies around them. I mean, one of them is simply attrition. You kill 7 of the enemy guys and you get a point. Basically, you kill one of their guys, you get a bravery point, and you get 7 bravery points, you get a victory point, you get 6 victory points, you win the game. So you can do that. You could just be a warmonger going out and destroying everybody else's meeples, scoring points that way. Or you can try to hold the strategic points on the board. You can build big armies and dump them down there and just defend your way to win. Now, you don't get tons of victory points for doing that, but it is a good supplemental strategy. Then you can go destroying buildings. Whereas the killing of meeples is pretty quick. It's easy to kill meeples. You get a bunch of them, you get a point. Destroying buildings gets you a lot of victory points, but it takes you forever to do it because buildings have so many hit points, so many defense points. It's neat. It's neat that you have all of these options to be able to formulate strategies for victory, and everybody can be doing it a little bit differently. Now, I will say that even though it has all of this stuff, none of that stuff is brain-burny. It's not a very deep game. I mean, it's the strategies are pretty surface level, and you can do some interesting things, and you can come up with some cool combos with buildings and the way you perform these strategies, but it isn't like it's going to burn your brain out trying to make this thing work. It's just a fun experience, and there's a lot of good choices. Now, I say that a lot, good choices. This one gives you choices of things to do, but even in the buildings, some of them branch, and you have 2 different actions that a building will do. You got to branch your little worker off so that you can take either one. It's so cool that it gives you options. Like the game itself gives you options. Options of strategy, options of victory point scoring, options of actions, even within the specific building you built. This game is great. This game really is great. I mean, it's simple. It's a smaller box. The components are good. But boy, and it plays in like an hour, and you still feel like you had this full, dense experience of a 4X game. Wow. They just emulated that RTS style perfectly, and I'm all in on this. This is great. This is a good game. Meeple War. Check it out if you like this kind of game. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining me for my review of Meeple War. If you like board games and card games, miniatures games, role-playing games, please check out the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast, our audio show. You can find it at thesecretcabal.com or on iTunes. And also, while you're here, please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. You'll get alerted whenever there's cool stuff that I've posted up here. And until next time, have a good one.